Everybody, here is the second part of the chapter Clean Slate of the Candy Shop War. As rain pattered against the yellow hood of her raincoat, Summer brooded about, meaning thinking about, in an unhappy way, about the injustice that she had the longest walk to the nest. Unless the creek was really low, she had to go all the way over to Greenway, up to the jogging path, and back to the bottom of Monroe Circle, just to reach their hideout. It was even less fair on a rainy day like today. Fishing a sealed sandwich bag of moon rocks out of her pocket, she decided to take a shortcut. She turned down a side street that granted access to the strip of wilderness along the creek and squelched through the weeds to where the water was rushing at a much higher level than normal. It would be a long jump even with a moon rock, and if she messed up, she could get swept away. She hesitated, reconsidering the longer route, and then decided she was being a sissy and popped a piece of candy into her mouth. Her body swiftly felt lighter. She had picked a spot where the far bank was only a little higher than the near bank. Crouching, she sprang forward. For a moment, instead of merely jumping, it seemed like she was soaring up into the rainstorm, rising like a superhero, the rain noisy against her coat. But soon she reached the apex, meaning the highest part of her leap, and began curving down toward the far bank. Her galoshes, which are boots, flopped down in the oozy mud. "Now that was an incredible jump," said a familiar voice. Summer whirled, and Denny came out of some bushes wearing a hooded camouflage raincoat. He appeared to be alone. "Jump?" Summer said, playing dumb. "Yeah," Denny said. "I wanted to see how high the rain had made the creek. Imagine my surprise when I see you walk up to the edge of the water, eat something, and jump across. I mean a huge jump, like you were flying." "You must be seeing things," Summer said. "Kind of like how we were seeing things when Eric got all hairy and Kyle was puking root beer. Kind of like how I imagined that I was pinned to the ground by a massive force. What's going on, Summer?" Summer pretended to sneeze and spit her moon rock into the weeds. Her body grew heavier. "I don't have time to stand around talking," she said. "Let's just say if I were you I wouldn't mess around with us any more." She turned and walked away hurriedly. "Love the threat," Denny laughed. "Fine, go fly away to play with the Magical Geek Squad. You don't scare me. I have my eye on you guys." Summer did not look back. She kept her pace quick and found the others waiting on the path above the nest. Trevor and Nate wore hooded ponchos. Pigeon had on a thick winter coat and carried a black umbrella. Summer bit her lip. Part of her wanted to report what Denny had seen, but she felt too embarrassed that she had been so careless. They already knew Denny was suspicious of them because of the trick candy. She decided there was no need to humiliate herself by sharing what else he had witnessed. "Do you have the telescope?" Summer asked. "Of course," Trevor said. They started down the path together. Summer checked periodically over her shoulder to make sure Denny wasn't tailing them. It would be easy enough for him to deduce that their candy was coming from Mrs. White without their actually showing him. By the time they reached Greenway, she felt confident that Denny was not on their trail. The Sweet Tooth ice cream and candy shop was not as busy as it had been during their previous visit, but considering the rainstorm, there was still a respectable crowd. The guy with the colored birthmark was helping customers, but the other man wasn't behind the counter today. Instead, there was another man who was very big. He had thick, shiny lips, and his cheeks and jowls were bloated. His black eyebrows almost met above his nose. The guy with the birthmark dug through the batwing doors into the back of the store and returned with Mrs. White, who waved the kids over. She raised the countertop and led them into the back. Today, the rear of the store was immaculate. Everything looked freshly scrubbed, the shelves appeared orderly, and no ingredients cluttered the work tables. "I'm very excited to see what you discovered," Mrs. White said, taking a seat at the table with the purple covering. Trevor opened his backpack and placed the ivory box on the table. Mrs. White undid the latch. They had rewrapped the spyglass in the silky material, trying to make it look exactly as they had found it. Mrs. White unfolded the fabric and held up the spyglass, peering into it. "Excellent," she said, twisting the end of the spyglass. "Well done." "What is it?" Nate inquired. Mrs. White lowered the spyglass. "This is a kaleidoscope, undoubtedly fashioned, which means made, by Hanover Mills. I expect it will prove useful locating the treasure." "Kaleidoscope?" Pigeon asked. "You mean you don't know?" Nate asked, enjoying the moment. Pigeon just rolled his eyes. "A kaleidoscope is a hybrid between a telescope and a kaleidoscope," Mrs. White elaborated. "A normal kaleidoscope uses optical trickery to create patterns out of bits of material built into the device. A kaleidoscope uses similar optics to reconfigure whatever you point it at. Kaleidoscopes work best when aimed at vivid backgrounds, for example, a bright floral arrangement." Is it a clue? Trevor asked. I suspect it is a tool for unlocking a clue, Mrs. White said, setting the kaleidoscope aside. We get some reward candy? Nate asked. You get a new magic edible to use in completing a new assignment. While I strive to unravel the secret of the kaleidoscope, I have a new mission of some urgency for the four of you. Do we have to do it at night? Pigeon sighed. Nighttime would probably be best, but you can wait until the weekend. Mrs. White held up a grainy gray tube. As you know, most of my confections work best on children, but a few function equally well on adults, like the white fudge. Interestingly, adults tend to remain most susceptible to magic that dulls their senses and reduces their vision. This masterful creation exploits that weakness, wiping out the memory of anyone who ingests it. Like amnesia? Nate asked. Total amnesia, Mrs. White said. Those who consume it retain their language abilities but lose all the specifics of their identity. They start again with a clean slate, which is where the substance derives its name, since the effects are permanent and each clean slate is indescribably difficult to produce. I do not administer it lightly. You want us to erase somebody's memory? Summer verified. A villainous man, Mrs. White affirmed, an enemy to me and to all humanity. Letting him start again with a clean slate will be a service to him and to the world. What makes him evil? Summer asked. Is he after your treasure? He is after the treasure and would do terrible things with the power it would grant, Mrs. White said. Whether or not I succeed in finding the treasure, he must be stopped. We need to get him to voluntarily consume the clean slate. If we try to force it upon him, the magic fails. The clean slate dissolves almost instantly into any liquid, so I will need you to sneak into his house and taint a drink in his refrigerator. That sounds really dangerous, Summer said. Who is he? I'll tell you once you agree to the assignment, Mrs. White said. Can you prove that he's evil? Summer challenged. Mrs. White pressed her lips together for a moment before regaining a look of calm. This relationship requires trust, Mrs. White said. I trust you with candy so powerful that most grown, responsible adults would misuse it. You trust me that the assignments I select are in our best interest. Otherwise, we should end the relationship. You can't just expect us to blindly do whatever you say, Summer said. You have to earn trust. How do we know you won't misuse the treasure as much as this other guy? We earn your trust by fulfilling the tasks you give us. Can't you give us some proof to earn ours? All eyes were on Mrs. White. If I had evidence, I would share it. All I have is knowledge and experience. I could tell you stories about this man, but I have no tangible proof to show you. Can we see the note on the back of the watch face? Summer asked. Now you doubt that? Mrs. White asked. You found the kaleidoscope right where the note described. Can we see the note? Summer repeated. If there is no trust in this relationship, perhaps you should turn in your candy, Mrs. White said. Interesting. She's not answering the question. My dad says people who insist that you trust them usually don't deserve it, Summer said. You don't need to give me more candy, but I earned the candy that I have. Everything you've had us do so far has seemed shady, and this new assignment, it's the shadiest yet. I just don't trust you. Summer looked at her three friends. Any of you guys coming with me? I am, Pigeon said. You probably have good intentions, Mrs. White, and your candy is amazing and fun. But I'm not cut out for this sort of stuff. I don't have all my candy with me, but I can bring it back if you want. Summer has a point. You earned the candy that you have, Mrs. White conceded, which means agreed. You can keep your share as long as you use it in secret. And stay out of the treasure hunt. How about you, Nate, Trevor? Nate cleared his throat. I'll keep working for you, he said. Me too, Trevor agreed. Sorry, Summer. It's okay. You guys do whatever you want. She felt tears welling up in her eyes. I better go. Come on, Pidge. They started walking away. Are you certain? Mrs. White asked. Summer and Pigeon paused, listening. There is no coming back if you walk away now. You'll miss many of my most amazing candies. You haven't even seen creature crackers. We're sure, Pigeon said. He and Summer passed through the batwing doors to the front of the store. She continued, holding back the tears. You were really brave in there, Pigeon said, putting a hand on her shoulder. Was I? She said, her voice catching. Or was I a chicken? They stepped out into the rain. It's hard to stand up to somebody like Mrs. White, Pigeon said. I wanted to before the graveyard mission, but I didn't have the guts. I wanted to again this time, but who knows if I would have without you. Well, the adventure's over for us, she said. No more treasure hunt, no more candy. I think I've had enough treasure hunting, Pigeon said. We can still have some fun with the candy we have left. They hurried across the rain-glossed asphalt of Greenway. I hope Nate and Trevor know what they're doing, Summer said. I sort of doubt it, Pigeon sighed. And there's a break in the chapter, and I'm going to stop there until next time.